Today on How It's Made. Multi-tools. Without a doubt, it's the sharpest tool in the box. In fact, it is the box. Jojoba oil. When they make up your makeup, this is a major ingredient. It's a pressing matter. And marionettes. I'm not joking, we really had to pull some strings to bring you this report. But first, having a multi-tool on hand is like having a toolbox in your pocket. It contains up to 21 basic implements from screwdrivers and scissors to tin openers and pliers. They all fold in and out of the handles, forming a case that's compact enough to be carried in your pocket. Let's hope it doesn't open accidentally. This multi-tool contains 14 different tools, including scissors, a knife, wire cutters, 2 types of pliers, and 3 different screwdrivers, and of course, much more. Most of these tools, and the handle into which they fold, are made of stainless steel. The strip of stainless steel winds off a reel and moves through a 300-ton punch press. It works like a giant biscuit cutter, striking a series of dies against the passing metal. This is one part of the multi-tool's 2-part handle. 17 strikes later, it's fully formed and ready to go through a heat treatment process to strengthen the stainless steel. A polishing robot runs the handle against the grinding wheel with specific program movements which produce a delicate line pattern on the metal surface. Certain tools like knife blades are made of premium steel, which is too hard for the press to punch through, so they have to be cut out by a computer-guided laser. The heat literally melts through the metal. The knife blades go into a polishing machine, where they vibrate amongst ceramic stones for several hours. This smooths out the rough cut edges by abrasion. A magnet then removes the blades from the machine. The knife blades, still dull at this point, go onto a motorized table, which runs them back and forth under a grinding wheel, which finalizes the dimensions. The 2 jaws which form the plier head are cast in steel. They assemble them with a spring, a pin, and a rivet. Then a robot performs a 2-stage polish, first against a grinding belt with a rough grit, then against one with a finer grit. The plier head is at last ready to be assembled to the multi-tool's 2-part handle. They align the holes of the handle with the holes of the plier head, slipping a spacer in between. They put a pin and screw fastener through the aligned holes to connect the handle to the head. Now back to the knife blade. Until this point, the blade's cutting edge has been dull. Now a robot sharpens it against 2 grinding wheels. This is what the knife blade looks like before and after. With the handle and all 14 tools formed, heat-treated and polished, and with the pliers connected to the handles, final assembly can begin. The remaining tools stacked together inside the 2 handles, with a stainless steel ring to fill up the excess space. In assembly, they thread a rod all the way through the holes at the base of the handle and tools to hold the alignment just until they secure the setup with a stainless steel pin and rivet. They repeat this process in the other handle with the remaining tools, except for the knife blade and scissors, which will go in later. They apply a few drops of thread lock to immobilize the pins in each handle. A bronze washer makes the handle housing the knife blade open smoothly to prevent injury. A safety cover is installed on that same handle to shield the knife when it's not in use. Now for the knife blade itself. They rivet the scissors to the other handle. The assembly is finished. This multi-tool with its 14 different implements is ready to be folded up and tucked into a pocket. Now the owner can be confident that he or she will always have the right tool for the job, which is handy. Jojoba oil isn't an oil. Actually, it's a liquid wax from the seed of the jojoba plant and native to the Sonoran desert areas in Arizona, California, and Mexico. Jojoba oil is a common ingredient in soaps, shampoos, moisturizers, makeup, and you can even cook with it. Cosmetics manufacturers buy refined jojoba oil from a processing facility. The oil in its natural state is golden, with a slightly nutty odour. Once refined, it can be rendered colourless and odourless if so required. The jojoba farm takes selected cuttings from mature jojoba shrubs, roots them, and then grows them for 18 months to 2 years in a greenhouse. Then they transplant them into the fields. The wind carries pollen from male plants to fertilise female plants, after which the female seed starts developing. Each seed is housed inside a hull, which gradually dries out and separates, dropping the seed to the ground. The fallen seeds are harvested. The mechanical harvester works like a giant vacuum, sucking the seeds off the ground, as well as a lot of sand, twigs and rocks. The harvester then drops its collection into a large hopper, which feeds an elaborate seed cleaning machine. In it, the seeds and debris move from conveyor to conveyor through a series of vibrating screens, each made of increasingly smaller mesh. The process gradually sifts out smaller and smaller bits of debris. At this point, as you can see, there's a whole lot of shaking going on. Eventually, only the seeds are left, and they go into huge polythene bags, ready for the processing plant. Workers empty the bags into a seed pit, and from here conveyors take the seeds to the presses. The liquid wax is contained within the hard white flesh, called the cotyledon. They extract the liquid wax with a conventional expeller press. A long screw conveyor feeds the seeds into the press, then crushes them against the shaft. This forces out the liquid wax, which makes up about half of the seed's weight. The mashed seed solids, called cake, are put to good use. Some are used for compost, and some will be processed into exfoliates for face or body products. The expelled liquid wax is moved into a holding container, and from there, a pump pushes it through a filter press. This press consists of several plates and frames, each one covered with a filter cloth. As the liquid wax passes through, the cloth catches the last remaining solids. This buildup of seed particles and other debris is biodegradable. To make exfoliants, machines grind the cake into particles. Then vibrating sifters divide the particles by size, rejecting the unwanted for compost. The extracted liquid wax isn't yet fully refined, so workers add natural powdered absorbents, then filter them out, and this clarifies the jojoba oil to its finished state. In the lab, extensive quality tests are carried out on every batch. Colour, odour and chemical composition are closely analysed, ensuring the oil meets strict product specifications. As the oil flows from storage tanks into shipping drums, it passes through a final ultra-sensitive cartridge filter, which is the final filter. This processing plant makes two varieties of refined jojoba oil, one golden with a mild nutty aroma, the other colourless and odourless. The texture and consistency are identical, and manufacturers buy whichever variety better suits their product. Whichever it is, hopefully, they're made up with it. Coming up, don't say we don't go to the wire just for you, because we do. We meet the men who make marionettes. See you after the break. String puppets, also known as marionettes, are an ancient form of artistic expression. It's not known exactly where or when the first string puppets made an appearance, but it was thousands of years ago. Their performance might be a bit wooden, but they still manage to entertain audiences worldwide. CGI characters may rule in Hollywood, but on stage, there's no doubt that string-animated ones can still dazzle and delight. A few movements of the puppeteer's hand and some fantastical characters are brought to life. Behind the scenes, making these marionettes is a major production. Each one is painstakingly handcrafted in a process that can take weeks. Like all good things, the spark is an idea. The puppet maker draws several sketches of a character, tweaking the features until he's satisfied. He then draws a full-scale version of the marionette. Referring to that scale drawing, he sculpts the head in clay, building it onto a wooden framework known as an armature. The clay is oil-based, which means it doesn't dry out as fast as the water-based kind, so there's time to tweak it to perfection. Lines drawn for reference make it easier to position the nose, eyes and mouth, and he defines the mouth a little more to give it a petulant expression. He smooths the top of the clay head using a looped sculpting tool and his thumb. He constantly compares the dimensions of the sketch to the sculpture. Once the lips and other features have been smoothed out, he prepares to make a plaster mould of the sculpture. He divides the head into 4 sections and outlines a trapdoor at the back of the head for easy access later. He now inserts metal shims along the dividing lines. He's essentially building walls to contain moulding plaster. The shims will also ensure that the plaster can be removed in 4 whole pieces. The plaster has been mixed to the consistency of thick cream. He scoops a generous amount into a walled-in section of the clay sculpture. The plaster generates heat as it hardens and sets. It then cools for about half an hour. He removes the shims that surround it, and then reuses those shims to wall in the next section. He repeats the process once more. When all 4 sections are complete, he gently chisels them at the seams to separate them. He opens the mould and removes the sculpture. Its image has been transferred to the inside of the mould, so the clay sculpture is no longer needed. He's ready to cast the puppet head using the mould. For that he uses plastic-infused cloth squares, softened by solvent. He transfers the squares to the mould sections and layers them papier-mâché style. A release agent applied to the mould keeps the squares from sticking to it as they begin to bond to each other and infiltrate the mould's curves and crevices. With squares now applied to all 4 sections, he puts the mould back together again and joins them at the seams. After 10 hours, it should be ready. All those little squares are now one solid marionette head. The casting looks pretty rough at this point, so he covers the entire surface with plastic wood filler. A sanding makes a massive difference. He then paints the head and cuts holes for the eyes and mouth. From the inside of the puppet head, he attaches springs to enable the mouth and eyes to open and close. Over in the paint department, with every stroke of the brush, another puppet becomes a more colourful character. It takes skill and patience with the brush to bring these characters to life, but the next stage of the process really makes the puppet feel real. It's looks that matter. Before the head of the penguin puppet can be attached to the body, it just needs a few more dramatic touches, like curly fur. Yes, in the fantasy world of puppetry, anything is possible, even for a penguin. He traces the pattern on the reverse side of the furry fabric and cuts it out from that side too. He stitches the fabric together to conform to the shape of the penguin head. This process must be repeated for each fur-covered part. He then checks the fit. Satisfied with the result, the eyelashes are next. He traces the pattern onto rubber and cuts the lashes out. To accentuate the eyes, the lashes are made substantial. He inserts a pair of lashes into slits in each wooden eyeball. No detail is overlooked. Here, he glues rhinestones to shoes for some serious on-stage bling. He's now ready to build the torso and limbs of the marionette. He traces the pattern of those parts onto blocks of wood and then cuts them out. This particular part is a hand for the penguin character. The initial cut is rough, so needs fine-tuning. He chisels it and files it with a rasp to round the profile. It takes about 5 hours to produce just one puppet hand. The other parts receive an equal amount of attention, because with ball and socket joints, it's essential each limb fits smoothly to the next. He attaches the 2 limb segments with a hinge made from a kind of fiberboard and tests that the joint will move freely under the costume. When the marionette body has all its moving parts, it's time for a stretch. So, they suit him up and thread the strings from the puppet to the correct spots on the controls. The control bars are shaped like an aeroplane, and in the industry, they're actually known as an airplane control. They use fishing line because of its strength. They thread 9 strings or more depending on the complexity of the marionette. Some of these strings are for support, some for movement, and others for effects, like nose growing or ear wiggling. With the strings strong and well knotted, the marionette body comes to life. And now the defining moment. They attach the head to the body. This new character is almost ready to meet his audience, to everyone's apparent delight, including his own by the look of it. All that's left is to run the strings for controlling his head and facial expressions. And some accessorizing. They now manipulate the strings to check his limb dexterity and the movement of his mouth, eyes and eyebrows. This marionette is now ready for the stage. Between shows, he rests. After all, he can't always be working. It takes up to 1,500 hours to create each one of these marionettes. And after all that work, it's now curtains up. Who decided to wear socks and sandals for this show? Come on, make an effort. The puppets have. Bravo!
They are vital for attracting predators and are primarily used by ice fishermen. Explore the art of the perfect fish decoy next Wednesday night at 8 on Discovery in brand new episodes of How It's Made.